we're gonna start exactly like your father did. With a set of walkie-talkies and an operation name.
Henry and Drizella team up while Gothel attempts to wake up Rogers. Let's break down Season 7, Episode 13 of Once Upon a Time right here on What Happened. Welcome back, Oncers, to another weekly recap, this time all about the episode titled Knightfall. The flashback gives us more of Alice and Hook, while in Hyperion Heights, Henry and Drizella reconnect, Lucy seeks help from Regina, and Tilly tries to warn Rogers that Gothel, or rather Eloise, is up to no good. Now, before I get to the recap, first I have a new interview with Tiara Scobie, who plays Robin on the show. We talked about Robin and Alice's relationship, and if we'll see Robin appear in Hyperion Heights or not, and all kinds of good stuff about Riverdale as well. So if you're interested in that, you can click down in the link in the description. Also, with the series finale quickly approaching, more actors have been announced as returning for one or both of the two final episodes, which will be called Leaving Storybrooke. Jared Gilmore, who plays Henry, was the first announced, and now let's list the ones who will be joining him. Bev Elliott will return as Granny, Tony Amendola will return as Geppetto or Marco, Lee Ehrenberg as Leroy/Grumpy, Joanna Garcia as Ariel, Robbie Kay as Peter Pan, Sean McGuire as Robin Hood, Victoria Smurfit as Cruella, and Keegan Tracy as the Blue Fairy/Mother Superior. There's still no word yet if the original stars like Jennifer, and Josh will be returning yet. I actually feel like that's a good list of people returning so far. Is there anyone else you would like to see return? Obviously, besides the big three, any other minor characters you want to see pop back up? How do you think these returning characters will even fit into the storyline, especially Sean McGuire as Robin? Will he be back as the original Robin somehow, even though he's deceased, or is it Wish Realm Robin, or some other version of Robin? Is it a dream? What do you think it's going to be? Alright, now that we've talked all about that, let's just dive into this episode. Our fairy tale storyline focuses on Hook and young Alice. Alice obviously is still locked in the tower, and she spends most of her time painting and longing to see the outside world. Sounds about right. She has a nightmare where she goes to hug him and he starts to choke, and of course out of nowhere Mother Gothel appears. When Alice wakes up, Hook tells her it's just a dream, but she says it's not and it's real. It seems like Alice has the ability to see things, which is something she also has in Hyperion Heights. As for Hook, he's determined to not have Alice's dream come true, so he decides to set out on a dark path in order to break Alice free from the tower. Before he leaves, he gives her the White Knight chess piece and she gives him the Black Rook. So what is Hook's dark plan? Well, he goes to see Rumpelstiltskin, of course, and I actually forgot how creepy yet oddly delightful Rumple's little laugh is. They basically strike a deal, and Rumple tells Hook he has to find a magic weapon that can break through any prison. But the bad thing is, it's in the hands of another pirate who is basically the hot pirate on the seas right now. Hook sets out to find this Captain Ahab and is also reunited with Smee. Ahab thinks Hook is just a washed up pirate who's lost his swagger, or so to speak, has gone soft, which of course is a jab to Hook's pride. I kinda actually think Hook looks really good with that salt and pepper hair. Anyway, Ahab has Maui's fishhook from Moana, which is the magical weapon he needs. In order to get it, the two gamble and throw dice, and Hook ends up winning, but Ahab still accuses him of going soft, so Hook tries to save face, saying that he needs Maui's hook in order to kill Rumpelstiltskin. When Hook returns to Rumple, though, they discuss their agreement when Ahab shows up and is like, I told you that you are a big fat liar. Their argument results in a duel the next day, since Hook loses sight of what he's really doing and tries to save his pride instead of, putting Alice as his priority. At the duel, Hook ends up winning, but he does get grazed by a bullet on his arm. He then realizes what he's done and rushes home to Alice, but unfortunately, Alice's nightmares become a reality. When they go to hug, Hook is launched across the room, and of course, poof, Gothel shows up and explains to Alice how Hook lost his way and took a detour and didn't come home right away, and that she poisoned the bullet from the duel, which in turn poisoned Hook's heart. Gothel then takes Maui's fishhook and tells Hook that he's just going to keep failing Alice over and over and he's never going to rescue her, so he might as well just go to the tavern and have some more drinks, which obviously we know that Hook does, since when we first met him at the beginning of the season, he was the fat, drunk Hook. Now for the Hyperion Heights storylines. First, we'll talk about Lucy, Henry, Jacinda, and Drizella. We see Regina doing the walk of shame from Mr. Samby's house at 6 a.m. where she runs into Henry, who explains what happened the night before with Lucy and Jacinda. And honestly, walk of shame or not, Regina always looks flawless, and it's kinda not fair. Lucy is still acting awkward towards Jacinda since breaking up the kiss with Henry the night before. Lucy tries to say that she's just feeling overwhelmed from the hospital and Victoria's death, and she just needs her mom, so there's no time for Jacinda to see Henry. In fact, Lucy even tells Jacinda she never wants her to see Henry again. Meanwhile, Drizella is trying to pack up Victoria's office, and she texts Henry to help her. She's feeling lost and doesn't quite know what to do with her life, and she thinks that Henry is like the only one who understands her. And in her trying to get comfort from him and whatever, she actually comes on to Henry and of course kisses him. And I don't know why, but I am still feeling like Henry and Drizella have more chemistry than Henry and Jacinda, and part of me does kind of want Henry and Drizella together, even though true love always wins in the end, right? So it's going to end up being Henry and Jacinda. Well, Henry does push Drizella away and says that this isn't what she needs right now. He says she still has a sister and a niece here, and maybe she should try to be the best person she can be and change things with the family that she still has. Drizella takes that advice and brings a box of Jacinda's old stuff over to her, and she tries to act like the old Drizella at first, kind of closed off, using humor as defense, whatever it is. But Jacinda ends up opening up about having her own problems with Lucy. Drizella then gets nice, telling Jacinda that she's a great mother, and then in turn, Jacinda goes and gives Drizella a hug. Then Jacinda gives Drizella a doll named Beatrice that she used to have as a child, and it kind of sets a light bulb off for Drizella. She says she has to finish what Victoria started and walks out. She then shows up at Henry's with the city's best mochi, which actually looked delicious and made me hungry, and I'm sad I don't have mochi right now. But she tells him thanks for the advice and says that he was right and that Jacinda knows her. She then says that like Victoria, she now has to fix all the horrible things she's done, so she needs Henry's help to find her other sister, Anastasia. And Henry's mainly like, wait, you have another sister. Drizella tells Henry he could be the hero she needs, and they drink to heroes. Now, I love Drizella, and I like to think that she's going to seek out Anastasia for good and to try to maybe break the curse and fix things without Henry dying, and that she's really changed for the good. But seeing as how Drizella has been in the past, a tiny part of me still thinks she could be using Henry and Anastasia for some maybe selfish or evil need. Like, there's maybe still a little evil Drizella in there, right? We just are gonna have to wait and see, but you know what? I'm rooting for you, Drizella. I am rooting for you. The episode ends with Lucy showing up at Ronnie's and showing Regina the page about the kiss of death. She thinks everything's her fault and she's going to lose Henry, but Regina reveals that she is awake and believes Lucy, and they're both Millses and they have to save people. So they plan to do it the Mills way with walkie-talkies and an operation named Operation Hyacinth. They're going to get Henry and Jacinda the happy ending they deserve, although Regina still looks pretty worried as she's hugging Lucy. Lastly, let's talk about Rogers, Rumple, Tilly, and Gothel. I still never know which names it's easier to call them by, but whatever. Rogers is trying to study the case of the dead doctor and the injured blind baker who is in the hospital with security around her room. Tilly comes in wanting to play a game of chess and clear her head because she just has this big feeling that it's going to be a bad day. But Rogers gives her the cold shoulder and tells her to leave, which does not make Tilly too happy. Rumple comes in and the two say they need to find Gothel, or rather Eloise as Rogers still knows her, to get the answers they need because they think that she is the key to figuring out this whole serial killer witch dying mess thing, and it's like the devil heard her name being called because all of a sudden Gothel's right there at their office. Gothel explains to the two that they're not a cult, and Rumple asks her if she was around the night Victoria died, but Gothel's not playing his game. She says that she'll help them find the killer, but she's only agreeing to talk to Rogers alone. Rumple and Rogers discuss this, and Rumple tries to warn Rogers how good of a manipulator Gothel is and that it's not a good idea, but Rogers doesn't care and he's willing to pay that price and talk to Gothel. Gothel explains that before he can be capable of helping her or finding out what he needs, he has to figure out who he is. So she's basically kind of trying to wake him up, especially because she saw a drawing of a pirate ship in his notebook. She asks him to bring back one of his paintings, which Rumple again advises Rogers that he shouldn't do, but Rogers is willing to pay whatever price he has to. While Rogers is getting the painting, Tilly's back at the station pacing back and forth and looking at Gothel on the TV, and she keeps talking about how she knew something bad was going to happen today and that Gothel is a monster. Rumple of course tells Tilly he believes her, but when Rogers shows up with his painting of the pirate ship, Tilly warns him to not show it to Gothel. Once again, they push Tilly away, and as Rogers goes back in to talk to Gothel, she creepily waves to Tilly knowing she's there on the camera, and it is just creepy, and unfortunately for Tilly, no one else sees this happening. Now, after looking at the painting and trying to get Rogers to wake up unsuccessfully or to think about things and whatever that can help him wake up, she tells him that the doctor and the baker were both given the same kind of candy-filled heart box before they were killed, so she says that if they want to find the killer, to follow his heart. Now, of course, it seems like they follow the wrong heart, though, because they go to the flower shop that delivered the candy and find out it was just a setup to distract them. They then run to the hospital room of the blind baker to see that security has been knocked out, and when they open the door, the blind baker is dead, bleeding on the floor, and of course, standing there is none other than Tilly with scalpel in hand, and you know what it looks like to anybody that isn't Tilly. Tilly says she tried to warn them, and she crawls out of the window and runs away. All I have to say is that this hospital sucks and has a horrible reaction time because Rogers hit that code blue button before he even opened the door to the blind baker's room, and by the end of the scene, no one has come running up. So if that was a real code blue and someone needed to be resuscitated or something, that person would be a goner. Rogers and Rumple then go to Tilly's lair to see if she's there, but she's not. Instead, they see a giant version of the Coven symbol, which has 2 of the spokes crossed out in red, and of course that makes it look like Tilly's keeping track of how many have died, or could she be keeping track of how many she's killed? Rogers doesn't really think Tilly could harm a fly, but Rumple reveals that Tilly has a history with the cult because they took away the person who mattered to her most and the only person who could really understand her, her father. Rumple thinks this could be motive, but Rogers looks at the knight chess piece on her shelf and he says that she couldn't be the killer and they have to make it right, so he sets out to find Tilly and prove her innocence while Rumple buys them some time at the station. And that wraps up the main events of this week's episode. I am actually glad that Tilly is finally back in the picture. Poor girl, she probably just went to check on the blind baker because she knew something bad was happening and ended up finding her already dead and just picked up scalpel, which she obviously shouldn't have, but she's just trying to help and no one will listen to her. Maybe now Rogers and Rumple will know to not brush this girl off anymore. She seems pretty valuable to their investigation. As for Gisela, how she's going to finish what her mother started, I'm not really quite sure what that meant. Obviously, it's something to do with Anastasia and maybe her magic, but how are they going to use that? Because Victoria mainly just wanted to wake up Anastasia. After that, I don't really know what she was up to. So what's next since Anastasia's already awake? Time will only tell, so let's watch the promo for the next episode.
Regina, I didn't expect to see you back here so soon.
Find out everything about Mr. Sandy.
You're friends with Dr. Facilier?
Who are you after?
You know what kind of man I am.
She's in his apartment right now doing recon.
You sent your grandkiddie into a genuine snake pit.
I have to get her out of there before he gets on.
Oh wow, Regina is sending little Lucy into the lion's den. That is a gutsy move, and I'm not sure it's going to turn out well judging from that preview. We'll have to wait and see. But Oncers, it is time for you to hit the comments and leave me your thoughts on this week's episode. Do you think Tilly is the one killing, or is she just the one, doing a good job trying to track down the real killer? What are Drizella's plans with Henry and Anastasia? How do you think all these returning characters are going to fit into the series finale? Let me know, then you can click right over here to watch that interview I was talking about earlier with Tiara Scobie. Be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you like what you see. My name's Lisa. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'll see you again soon.